Average at Best Cornhole here. Got my new swag bag shirt. Fits a little bit better, but I also got some new swag bags for you. I picked up the new Lunatic series, and I have the L, R, and the H version of that series. The reason I did that is because my previous experience with swag bags, especially their L versions, they're not like your typical L versions. And with this Lunatic series, it did not disappoint. I'm gonna jump right into the baggage, and I want to start with material. So on these Lunatics, the slow side material, this is a hybrid material. It's found on the Guardian, the Dart, and the Wolverine. What sets these Lunatic series apart from those is that they do have that super slick performance liner on them, which it does have some benefits, but it also has some negatives that I'll get into later. And then the fast side on this series, this is that common Surefire Wizard fast side. I want to get into the speeds, and Swag Bags rate these bags at a 5.5 and an 8. Now, I don't hate the 5.5 on the slow side. That's pretty common for bag makers to give this a 5 to 5.5 rating. I did notice that it is a little bit faster than what they rate their Chaos, though, and I do feel that this material is a little bit slower than the Chaos, and I do think that maybe this material plays a little bit faster because of that performance liner with it being slick, but the Chaos also has that performance liner. But again, I don't hate on it. 5 to 5.5, that is a good rating for that slow side. This Lunatic series, it does have a standard template or a medium template, whatever you want to call it. I will say the differences here is that the L version, it is going to feel a touch bit larger than the H version. That's because of the amount of fill in it. The H version is definitely fuller. So if it puffs up in the middle, it's going to shrink the sides down a little bit. This series does have a mixed fill, and you can feel it. There is some flats and the rounds. What makes the difference with the fill and the L, R, and H is that the L is going to have a little bit less fill in it than the R, and then ultimately the H. This is what really makes swag bags different from the others. Their L version actually weighs right in at 16 ounces. So that's nominal spec for ACL bags as far as weight. And you do hear 450 grams quite a bit. That's actually less than 16 ounces. So these L versions, these are going to feel like a typical bag to you, not necessarily an L bag. And then the R's come in 0.25 ounces more than that. And then the H's, they're right on the upper limit of the tolerance. So that's what I was saying. Like, these are L, R, and H. They meet all the specs of the ACL, but they definitely are going to feel heavier and fuller than what you're used to, especially the R's and then ultimately the H's. And it's not just the weight that's going to translate to the flop. Clearly, the L's, since they have less fill in them to get that less weight, they're going to feel a lot floppier than what the H's are. And I will say, with these H's being on the high end, having that mixed fill with that round built feed, they are an extremely full bag and not extremely floppy. The R's, it's kind of typical. I did say that they do weigh a little bit more than what you're used to, especially for an R, but there still is some flop to that bag. Before I get into the slide up, I just want to ask, if you like the content we're putting out, please like this video, subscribe to the channel. It's going to help grow my channel. I'm primarily going to try to focus on talking about the R, since that is the R version, but I want to touch on the L and the H's and how they all differ, so it might take a little bit of time. Moving on to a highlight and a low light of each version, and I'm going to start with the R, and I felt like it was a great balance of whole bodiness, forgiveness, and shot shaping. It was like, compared to the other two, the jack of all trades, like the Swiss Army knife, with being able to do everything. Now, unfortunately, the low light is when you are the jack of all trades, normally you're not the master of anything. The L version, I really like the hand feel on it and how dang drippy they were. Like, there's enough flop there that you're going to accidentally catch the corner of the hole and it's going to drip on you, especially with that mixed fill and that liner. Most people, I would assume, would prefer the hand feel of that over the other two series. Unless you like a fuller bag, then you would bump up. The Lowlight, it's really not a low light of the bag. It's more of a statement. When you get the L version and you're used to the other versions, it's not going to be able to shape the shots quite as well because there's just not as many pellets in there. It's not as full. And it only makes sense that the H version here, you're going to really be able to shape shots with it, especially how full it is. This bag is very active. I was able to cut with it with ease. The only problem with it is I think it's a little too full, and I've talked to other people also that thought it was just, just a tad bit too full. If you do like a really, really full bag though, this one is going to be for you. I do want to briefly touch on Breakin just because they have that performance liner in there, and it is a thick liner. The break-in process on these bags took a little bit longer even after soaking and doing whatever. You really have to throw them because that's an extra layer, and I think that liner is a little bit thicker than normal extra layers. So it does take longer to, really break that piece of fabric in as well as the slow side hybrid. So don't get discouraged. Just keep throwing them because once you get them to that playable point, you're really going to enjoy how they do play. I don't think Swag Bags made these R's like a forgiving first bag, especially because of the extra weight, that mixed fill, the round beads in there. The bag is going to kick a little bit on you. It's pretty forgiving because of that performance liner and the hybrid material. We know hybrid materials are forgiving. And I also think that these performance liners, how slick they are, they prevent a bag from being as active as possible because the beads are sliding on it also, which in turn, it's not going to get to bite the board and get the action that you want. The L version, I mean, if you are looking for a whole running bag, something that's forgiving, that's definitely going to be your option because it is a little bit looser, so that actually adds to that forgiveness. But still, I don't think the L is a forgiving first bag. These bags are way more. And then obviously the H version, with how full it is, and I already said it's super active, this definitely is not going to be a forgiving bag. It's going to be a bag that someone wants to learn how to shape shots with, or someone that really does like that fuller feeling and has a super flat bag and they're really not worried about that kick. The Lunatic series, it definitely has a decent amount of whole bodiness, especially with that performance liner in there, because what that does is it doesn't want the pellets to stop moving. So if you do get close to the hole or you get a hanger or whatnot, the pellets are just going to keep on shifting and it's going to fall down. And I did touch on it earlier. There is some downfalls to that, and I finally noticed this, while throwing these three series. People like myself, like average throwers or whatever, that have to worry about bags, hanging on the back of the board, or bags that are off to the side that are kind of hanging off to the side of the bag. It's the same thing. Like if you get the bag hanging in a hole, you brag about that performance liner because you hit the board a couple times and it falls in. But it's opposite, though, if you're hanging off the side or the back, because someone comes and hits that board a couple times, there's a greater chance of it falling off the board. Now, I did feel that the R's was really good at like that static whole bodiness, as if you lay up a blocker, you come up a little bit short and it's kind of hanging there. It's a little bit easier to just bump or nudge or vibrate that board and it's going to fall. The L version, on the other hand, I thought had, a lot more dynamic whole bodiness. Like I stated before, it's loose, so you're going to want to put these in the hole when you throw them. You can lay them up short. They are easily collected after that, but it has a better chance of accidentally grabbing that hole while you're throwing it than what the other two versions did. The H version, they were tricky. It's just too full, and sometimes you think that the fullness is good, like nudge it a little bit and it's going to move, but you have to be really accurate with your shot. But it's made definitely more for rolling or even airmailing, like using the whole bodiness that way. Like you're not going to accidentally grab the hole as much as you would with the other two series. I think that you definitely just have to be on point a little bit more with your throw. And the one thing I did notice with this version, the H version over the other two, is if I landed a little too close to the hole, it had the tendency or the possibility to bounce over the hole and miss completely. Now, that bounce is a good thing because this is also going to be the easiest bag to roll, and that's what I'm saying. You want to just roll over the pile and use the bulk and the weight to kind of slowly drift over the other bag and then fall into the hole instead of relying on just the hole to catch it. When talking about collectability, I felt the R version was great at collecting. It's got a good mass to it and fullness to it that's going to make collecting excel. And that gives you the opportunity to lay your blocker a little off to the side to distract your opponent, knowing that you can do like a cut, collect for your blocker and clean it up. The L's, they did collect. I felt like sometimes they would miss a little bit more than what the R's did, and that's just because it's looser. So you could have some loose fabric over there, and when you throw it, it's hitting loose fabric, and it's not exactly hitting beads. And then the Lunatic H is definitely straight on collects, no issue all. You just bounced it, and then both of the bags would go into the hole. The problem is if you were, a little off target or the bag was a little off to the side, I found that it was bouncing off of that collect a little bit more than the other two versions. Given my opinion on playability, and I want to start with the R version, and I'm not talking about the R version compared to the others. I'm talking about the Lunatic series right now. This is like a great hybrid style game bag. And if you don't know what I'm talking about, I've mentioned it in other videos like play that hybrid style game. This bag is really, really good at that. And that's when you run holes with it some of the time, you lay up blockers some of the time, you muddy up the boards, you do whatever you want with that bag because this is very versatile. So say you run your first two bags in a hole and then lay that third bag blocker, it's going to confuse your opponent, they're going to miss, and then you clean that bag up. Or if they're the ones that are muddying up the board, you know that you have the ability to take this bag and cut and roll and flop or do whatever to beat their blocker and take that hole control. I think that's really where this series shined, is how versatile it was. Now, speaking about the L series, you lose a little bit that shot shaping, but what you gain is you gain that hole running ability. So if you don't throw the flattest bag and you are worried about it kicking a little bit on you, or you're not quite there yet where you can play your kick, the L version is going to be the one route that you're going to want to go because of the mixed fill and that performance liner in there. Like the whole bodiness of the bag really makes you not worry about not being able to shape the shots as well. But you still can, and if you watch some of our videos, you can see friends of mine were rolling the L bag still. So I'm not saying that you can't do it with it. It's just that it's going to be a little bit better at just straight running holes using the forgiveness than what the R and the H series were. Now the H series, I touched on it before, like that is all dirty style game in my mind. I mean, most of the time I'm trying to just run holes with any bag just because that's where my skill level's at. But I was purposely laying a lot of blocks with this thing. I was just trying to keep them, straight down the middle because I knew if I was going to go try to clean that up, I wanted to bump it straight on to get into the hole. But when my opponent was laying the blocker or my opponent came up short, I was putting a lot of tilt on this thing because these H's really, really moved on the boards, and I was able to cut the heck out of them, which really made me think that someone a lot more experienced than me, they would be able to manipulate that bag easily, and they would really, really want to play like a full dirty style game with it. You can find Swag Bags at swagbagscornhole.com. Now they do have a Facebook page, which is just at Swag Bags, and there is a fan page, which is at Team Swag Bags. Price tag on this series is $94.99. They do have reps, so try to reach out to one of their reps and talk to them about the series if you're interested in buying. And just a reminder, Swag Bags does add a lot of extra swag in the bag, so when you do make the purchase, you're not just getting like a bubble wrap mailer with nothing else in it but the bags. And Swag has been running some pretty good sales recently, especially like their week-long sales on each series. The Lunatic series, it does stand out in ways compared to other bags with the common materials, and one of the biggest things about it is that performance liner. And I said that, you know, it does have its benefits, but it also has its downfalls. The benefits probably outweigh the downfalls. The whole bodiness you're going to be able to get with the mixed fill and that performance liner, you're really going to enjoy that. Felt that, you know, with Swag's bags, extra weight in the bags, because like I said, you know, the L version, that's right at nominal. R version, it definitely weighs more than a bag that you're used to. It definitely decreases the negatives of that liner because there's more fill in there, there's more weight, so you could still make those shots. And these bags are a little bit fuller than the norm, so if you do like a fuller bag, these are probably going to be right up your alley. And I just want to end this with, you're going to be average at something, be average at cornhole.